Hey everyone, welcome to the Urban Outcast. I'm your host, the Outcast, Mark Urban. Hey everyone, so we had a little bit of audio issues. We had some technical difficulties, so some of the audio is going to be a little different. I apologize for that, but this is still a really good interview. I hope you guys like it, and we hope to hear your comments. Thanks. Well, today I have a very special guest, The Rock. Well, okay, not that rock, but it's a rock you all know and love. You know, the rock that you maybe even put a few coats of spray paint on yourself as you come into Whatcom County on I-5, right around the Samish, Lake Padden area. So I also have with me a rock star who's trying to save the rock. So I'm proud to have with me today Keith Cook. Keith, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So this is quite the little movement going on here. Tell me a little bit about you, what you do, and we'll get into how'd you get this started.
The Rock started basically from a Facebook page. So we had Orchid Remax, and we're getting trained in Facebook like 15 years ago. We each put up our profile, and we're all down in the basement on our laptops, and we all kind of then instantly became friends with each other, so it was kind of funny. So all of a sudden we're like, oh, I'm your friend. And we're talking about getting things you might be interested in and getting more information. So I always had an interest in the Rock because it's coming into town, and I always thought it was painted, but I never knew what it was painted about or what was the backstory. If it said, A plus B, who is A, who is B, or I just didn't know. So I was curious about that. So started a page, and it's really all I wanted to do. I didn't know they were planning on moving the Rock 15 years ago or 2,000 years ago, whenever it was planted there. So I had no idea they were looking at moving the Rock. So mostly just a curiosity of what it was painted for.
I didn't know they were going to move it either. I had no idea. They've been planning this for a lot longer than just recently then.
It's, I don't know if I'm getting all the story or not. So the reason I'm getting the story is because starting that Facebook page, the WSDOT, Washington State Department of Transportation, sent out this like mass email to a lot of people. They call it concurring parties that would have an interest in the Rock. So it went to all of the, pretty much every city in Whatcom County and Skagit and all the tribals and government, and said, if you're interested in the Rock, speak up or forever hold your peace. And since I had the Facebook page, I was a concurring party. So I submitted the paperwork and said, yeah, I want to know what's going on with it. So they've been keeping us in the loop, and we joined the Zoom meetings they have with the WSDOTers.
And how long ago now did you start the page?
Started the page, I think, in 2009.
Okay. Yeah, and that's it's slowly grown, obviously.
Yeah, it's grown with all the activity recently. It's grown quite a bit, but I think I just looked today, 4,700 followers.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Well, you're probably going to gain some more here real quick.
I'm like 4,702.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
You'll get follow.
You'll get
some. I can follow.
You'll get some of my audience. There's a few of them out there, but did you grow up in Whatcom County?
I did. Yep.
So that's a staple for you as well.
It was, and my parents were divorced, so I spent a lot of time going back and forth in Seattle. So I grew up in Silver Beach, but would spend quite a bit of time on the freeway. So if you don't make it to Seattle that much, you're not going to see the Rock as much. But if you continually go by, you're going to see that it's painted one thing, and then 2 days later, it's painted something else. And the cool part with the Rock, if you're not from Whatcom County, is it's a rock just south of town, and it was placed there roughly 50 years ago when it became apparent it was there because I-5 just came through there. And it was first painted, first thing painted was 1969 South, which was for a high school out of Seattle. And there's a cool picture of just this virgin rock with the word South painted on it and one guy sitting on it. Well, I don't know, someone didn't like that, so they came and spray painted over it and wrote something else, and then the next guy did that, and right now the paint is thick. I mean, it is literally inches thick because it's been painted year after year. And
I was just talking to some people at a gathering this weekend about that,
And I mean, I can't imagine how, how many years now? 50 years?
It was 1970.
How thick? I mean, some people are like, yeah, the rock must only be about really
Right.
this big, right? But I mean, I would think that wouldn't it be cool to somehow do some sort of fundraiser drive where you throw money in to take a guess at how thick it is? You know
Sure.
what I mean? How thick?
You have to
know?
do the millimeters. Yeah,
Is it,
it's in different areas because, and if you can look at the older photos versus the new ones, and you can actually see it like
the shape has changed,
it's
hasn't it?
chubbing up a bit because of the paint. It's got like these teeth looking things, and it's
Not as jagged and defined.
well. What happened was some of the people painted either with spray paint or with rollers, and so some of the roller paint has come down, and they have to put a thick coat on there, and so it's like out of these drips. So it's almost like icicles of paint. That it's
Interesting.
so wild. So it is. It's pretty super thick. I mean, spray paint's a real thin layer, but it's several inches thick.
You think several inches?
Oh yeah.
I'm guessing. My guess is 6 inches. I don't know.
In different areas. So the front of
At the thickest.
right. I wouldn't disagree with that. But
That's-
not that much. I would probably say like 3 inches for the
Okay.
most part.
Okay.
And then those long drips probably maybe
That's-
6 range.
That's still a lot of paint.
Oh yeah.
So, is that so? I'm trying to understand the reason they're actually moving the rock because the fish is it Fish Trap Creek? Is that what it's called?
Chucking Creek.
Chuckanut Creek. Okay. So why exactly are they moving the rock? Is this an environmental issue? I mean, it's a rock sitting by a creek. So what? Why does it have to move? Or is it because I mean, is there lead in the paint? Is there a concern environmentally? Why exactly does the rock have to move?
From what I'm told, and I haven't researched this the whole way, but there's a report that says there's trout and steelhead in this area of Chuckanut Creek, and not salmon because, and I haven't researched. I'm trying to. It was a waterfall, so I don't think salmon go beyond this point, but mostly for trout and steelhead. So what they want to do is correct the creek, because realistically, when they put the freeway in, they didn't bridge the creek. They culverted the creek, and they're going to do a project similar to the Lake Padden Creek, which was also culverted. So it will be a gorgeous new $160 million bridge when they're done with it. But as part of the building process, they need to make a bypass to go around. So when you kind of drive on the shoulder for a minute, and then you while they're doing the construction, they get you back on the freeway. So this will be on that in that construction zone. So now that it's in the construction zone, the rock needs to be moved, and hence that's why they put out the APB to all these agencies saying, what do we do with this rock? Because it is historical.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's not an environmental thing as much as a proximity.
100%
Okay.
proximity.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, okay. So now what? I mean, what do we do with this rock? Or, how do we do with this rock? What are some of the options that have been thrown out there?
The options are thrown back, and then they're kind of boomerang or backfiring. So if it was just like you and I, and it's like we have to move this rock, and we didn't have any government or anything to worry about, it would say like, in my mind, we'd want to put it somewhere as close as possible to the rock. And in my mind, we're going to make like lemonade out of these lemons. If it had to move,
Sure.
I would have moved it, I don't know, about 2 blocks south of it, right when you get, when you exit I-5, it's 246, and get back on, it creates that little triangle right there. Well, in that triangle, they would have been able to, and here's the lemonade, put it right there and create it more safety, because right now, everyone who's been painting there's a safety concern because you're either pulling over on the freeway or you're hiking in. So it's really not safe to be playing on the freeway. So,
Sure.
but people do that. They've been doing that for 50 years. So either the triangle, there's a little park and ride right there, which would make sense. Wouldn't be as visible. The triangle would be lots of visibility, or something as simple as putting it in a rest area. You pull over the rest area. Any rest area would be fine with me if it's a spot to be painted. And so, what I was told under no circumstances that, according to the people I'm talking to, and here's where it's hard for me to believe that if we could put a man on the moon, we can't figure out where this rock goes. What they're telling me is there's no maintenance fund to take care of this on WASDOT property. So if you look at the options, like anywhere within the WASDOT right of way is not an option. And,
Take care of it. Like what? Paint it?
and I don't know what the maintenance is. Like they have to. It's a rock.
Let people paint it? I don't know.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
It self-manages itself right now, and it's been on WASDOT property. So, they're saying like it might start a trend of people painting other things. There's, it's a whack-a-mole. I feel with WASDOT. I try to resolve one problem and another one comes up. So even if you're on a path, it's like they got a game that whether it's going to work out or not, I don't know. I honestly don't know because I've put out emails to group emails. I was emailing the two main parties on the project who were my contacts, and I was getting kind of a lackluster result with responses from them. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go back and email that whole big group when it first came in and try to get some answers because I found another location which I thought made sense, which is the property right next door. And so we reached out to a neighboring property owner, and they're coming up with all these reasons on our last Zoom meeting. They even presented it, it's all mapped out. What if we move it here? And they researched it about 30 seconds and said, oh, we don't see an easement right there or access. We're just going to quit and stopped working on it. I was able through the title company to find an easement for it within 20 minutes. And so it could have access, and the dialogue is open with the neighbor next door. But WASDOT's really only reaching out to me on these Zoom meetings, and I'm pretty sure they're having their own private meetings, not just with Zoom. So
is this neighbor, is this a piece of property like a residency or just land he owns?
it's a local guy, land he owns. Super cool guy, has it. They've always called the property the Painted Rock property. They've got like 20 acres vacant land adjacent to it, and longtime Whatcom County resident, and
So he wouldn't have a problem with people coming on his property painting it because that's going to be something that's obviously.
I can't speak for that, but I mean, if people are respectful and things like that, and WASDOT wants to have an opinion because they said they will pay to move it, whether that's lip service or not, I'm not sure because there's all these stipulations, but in my job, I don't take no as an answer. If I did, I would never get a job done. It's always like yes with exceptions. So let's see what we can do to try to make this happen. And I've heard a lot of good ideas because by no means am I sitting in this chair because I wanted to figure out where the rock goes. The only reason I'm sitting in this chair is because I was curious 15 years ago what people painted on it, and then I was kind of thrown in front to be the spokesperson.
You became the front runner for the spokesman.
But some good ideas and I'm not sure this whole maintenance thing, I think if it was a matter of funding, which I don't have an idea what they think the maintenance issue would be, if it's so many dollars a year to take care of it, well, we could probably bond that. So if we created, say it's $5,000 a year to maintain the rock for whatever silly reason that would be. If we put $100,000 and bonded it at 5% interest, then there would be the maintenance fund, and WASDOT hopefully wouldn't care. I don't know if that's an option or not, or someone at WASDOT, whoever I'm working with at this level, I'm not sure who the next level is, and that's if people have some ideas or want to help, then that would be great.
What are some of the comments you're getting, and what's some of the feedback, and are you getting other people that are looking to help? I'm seeing you're doing some interviews with some other media.
Right. It's a lot of the comments. I think mostly the ones that like it. I guess not so much whether it needs to be there or not. One comment that really got me interested the other day was even the need for the bridge and pulling it back further, which is okay. It's $160 million. That could go a long way. And I don't know how research is, and they've got reports in this. And I have no problem. I think we should leave. We screwed this planet up enough. I'd love to leave it in better condition than when we left it. So I don't have a problem with that at all. But it is a lot of money that you could do a lot of things with. And so I guess I don't know how valid it is that even the project is a viable project. They're going to do it. I didn't research or sign off on any part of this. I start off as just thinking, all right, they got to move the rock. So I started looking at that, and this last week with this other person, basically saying that based on a waterfall that is down creek from this, at least the salmon or even some of the trout or the other fish couldn't come up this far anyways. So what good does it do to put a bridge over something that fish can't get to anyways? And I don't have the answer to that one. And that's on, apparently on Old Samish there is a waterfall. And I went down the other day knowing I was having some interviews, and I tried finding the waterfall, and I found one neighbor that was really not too excited to talk to me, and another neighbor who didn't like the rock whatsoever. He's been there 50 years, and he's kind of a
Interesting.
anti-rock person.
Really?
And so he wasn't much help either.
Come on, who doesn't like the rock?
So, but most of it, I don't think we get a lot of negative comments. I think a lot of it is unbelievable, leave it where it is. And that was my initial thought. It's like, that's stupid. Why move the rock? Well, if this project is all earmarked and it's going to happen, the rock has to move. I think it's unfortunate that it's on WSDOT property, and the WSDOT can go anywhere but on WSDOT property. They're just not going to take it. What they've said publicly, if it was to go somewhere publicly, would be something that's accessible to the public and where kind of the same things can happen. So the neighbor to say, all right, there's still some things to connect the dots, because you would have to, it's not like you just pull over the road and paint the rock. You would have to come back in, several hundred, whether they needed access, then you're looking at, do they need toilets? Do they need ADA? Do you need...
Is this thing going to become a park monument?
Right.
You're going to build benches around it, sing Kumbaya.
It's funny, and then it's also limited by the weight. So it weighs like 100 tons or 200,000 pounds, and all these bridges and stuff aren't equipped. So this is a way oversized load, because usually what semis are 80,000 or 100,000. So.
Oh yeah, I never thought of that. How much that thing weighs, and God, what's it gonna? I can't imagine it's gonna be cheap to move it.
No, they said they would. They also want to scrub it, so they want to have it all clean, because environmentally they're concerned that it's been being painted since 1970 or so.
There's got to be lead paint in that.
Right.
Yeah.
And they've done some testing underneath. I don't think it'd be anything too crazy like a
core
gas
sample.
Yeah, they basically just dig down till they get to clean dirt, and then they just remove it.
Wow, that's going to be quite the task. And when they do eventually move it, I think you're going to see helicopters and media everywhere, because that's going to be an interesting.
Probably at midnight when they'll try to move it.
Yeah, right.
Well, and I was thinking, it wasn't even the neighbor's property. If we just went and stole the rock and just like scooted it onto his property, and
if it were so simple.
And I mean, they would see right where it went. But the concern is, if my luck, it would then all of a sudden start rolling down the hill. Over
something that heavy, you got to have one of those lowboy huge trailers that have all the wheels.
Oh yeah.
And to support it, because geez, that thing's, however many tons you said, 100 tons.
Yeah, 100 tons. Yeah.
Holy cow.
It's a lot of rock.
Jeez, that's a lot of rock. Yeah.
I don't know how much they'll thin it. Maybe it'd be like 180 if they take the paint off it.
Well, and that's kind of the bummer part, because that's part of the history, and the whole, legend of the rock is all the paint.
Right, and that's my whole interest in this was the paint, and that's where part of this is interesting, because as it's more in the public eye, I think more people are aware of that there does have its own Facebook page.
There's years of history on this thing.
And yeah, and I'm wanting people to, even if the rock's gone, so send in your photos so it can be documented, because realistically, everyone who's painted it, besides the people who painted it this morning at 11:30, it wasn't the last one. So it's like who's ever the last one to paint it, that's what it is. So I think it's important enough for most people. I mean, you're not just going to go paint the rock just for any old regular day. You have to plan it. You have to know what's going on and make a plan.
And some of these paintings are pretty impressive.
So we painted it this morning, and it was a shame. I painted it a couple of times. We painted a really cool happy face, which actually is funny because that's on the WSDOT paperwork. But nice. We painted a big happy face on there a couple years ago, and that's on the front page of their literature. But today, it was actually painted yesterday. We just uploaded a new to the Facebook, and it has actually they did a video around some of the more artsy paint I've seen, but we're there this morning with the TV show, and they wanted to do the rocks. It was pretty cool. We got three groups who have painted the rock before. So it was King Five who did this, Eric Wilkinson, I believe, and the guy that does those little heroes guys, really cool guy. Him and Tim, the photographer. And so he reached out a couple of days ago, and he wanted to have three different groups who have painted it. And so and not all, because it gets painted for sports victories or weddings or happy birthdays, but also sad tragedy and things like that. So we had one group who had painted it for 20 years consecutively on the anniversary of both their sons went out, Jim and Braden, when they passed away with their kayaks or canoes. So the two moms have got together and painted this every year.
So this thing is not only a piece of history, it's a memorial.
Oh, big time. And they could pick anywhere in the room. It's important for these guys for 20 years to come back to the same spot and recognize their sons. I mean, it's because goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah, there's some sentiment there. So this isn't something we should just necessarily, let's scrape this thing into pieces. And I even heard something about they were talking about breaking it into smaller chunks. Was that correct?
If they can't move it, they'll have to. They're not going to move it just down the road. They're going to.
It needs to be in a museum almost, and then with all pictures of every time.
I've never heard that one. That's a great idea.
A museum of the rock. It's got testimonials. It's got, people could put placards with their picture when they painted it, what it means, a core sample
right
that you can look at. Right? Think about that. Wouldn't that be great?
I
mean, a
think
museum
it would be
for
great.
the rock.
Great idea.
We got to find a place for it.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And then the last person that paints it, it's kind of made history, because that's where it's sort of sealed, unless we want to have it open to be painted again. But the problem is if it's in something like a museum, it's done, it's sealed, it's a piece of history. You have the pictures, you have the core sample, whatever. Because the whole mystique or challenge was to sneak up there and paint this rock without anybody seeing you. That's going to be gone now.
What the ladies that painted every year said, and these gals have probably the most experience. They painted every year around the same time. It's kind of rough weather, but they said, yeah, they've talked to state patrols, pulled over one time and said they shouldn't be painting that. And so they said, okay, we won't, made it like they were going back to their cars. Cop took off, and then they'd be like back and got the deed done. So it was something like that. The other two that painted it, someone just painted it for their birthday, and it was pretty cool. They were very excited because there were a lot of people who surprise things. And then my favorite is, and the gals I picked up today were my buddy Mimi and Bev, and so they were high school mates, and they painted it 10 years ago or so for their high school reunion.
All right, everybody. So little technical difficulty there. So we're gonna try and go this. So you're gonna get things pieced together a little bit here with some of the audio. So I apologize for that. We did not have the record going on the podcaster, but we did on the cameras. So a little bit of difference in the audio there. But again, back to my guest Keith Cook talking about The Rock. And no, not the one that you usually think of, but the one you all know and love that's on the way into Bellingham, right there by Samish. And we were talking about what's happening with it. The rumor is it's getting moved. It's slated to be moved. Why? What are we going to do with it? Where's it going to go? What's going to happen to the legacy behind it and the history? And as we were just talking, it's somewhat of a memorial. So, Keith, kind of bring us back into that again. What you know about why is it moving again?
Because some people came by and said, we're from the government and we're here to help.
Perfect. All right.
So
that's kind of sounds about right.
So the government information that they have, good, bad, or indifferent, whether it's correct or not, there is a plan to put a new bridge at Chuckanut Creek. And the reason for the bridge, which could be debated or not, for this $160 million project is to help out the trout and the steelhead. And I'm not sure about salmon, but trout and steelhead. So when they put the bridge in, it'll be a similar project like they did to Lake Padden, if you're familiar with where that is, just a few miles up the road. When they did that project, they'll have you come onto the median and kind of so that gives them a bigger construction zone. And the rock is right in that construction zone. So the rock, for the sake of adding this new bridge, the rock, his fate is unknown.
And so this has nothing to do necessarily with the lead paint that might potentially be in it from years and years of painting. It's more of a proximity issue.
100% proximity. It's just in the way. There is lead-based paint there. Been testing it. I haven't seen all the results of it, but they do have a concern with lead-based paint because they've started painting this before 1978 was everything had lead in it. So started painting this in the 70s.
And what was the first painting again?
The first painting so they put I-5 through here in the late 60s, and the first time it was painted, it said South, and has a picture of a South with a gentleman on the top of it, and that is a high school in Seattle.
Right.
And I think it was 1969 or 1970. That's right about when it started. And ever since then, I guess someone didn't like South, so they came in and painted over that, and then someone didn't like what the next guy did, and it just kind of rolled, and it's gotten, thicker and thicker with each opinion. So
yeah, I can't even imagine how thick that is. And like I was saying earlier when we were talking, I think how cool it would be to have a contest where everybody throws in $20 or whatever to make their guess at how thick it actually is,
Sure.
and see whoever gets the closest. And I don't know, maybe that could go towards preserving it, whether it's in some sort of historical monument or kind of a museum, encapsulate it. I don't know. I think that'd be kind of cool,
I think it would. I think there's a big interest in it right now, and if you're not from around Bellingham or Whatcom County, it's hard to say how, I guess, the feelings people have when they drive by the rock if you're from here. So I grew up in Bellingham my whole life, and I spent a lot of time back and forth Bellingham to Seattle. And it's the one kind of thing that once you made it to the rock, it's like, all right, I'm past the front door, I'm home. And it's something to where people feel that it's home, and then you're going to look up there and kind of see what it's painted and be curious, like, well, what does that mean or not? But it's a strong feeling, and for the effort that it would take for people to go paint on that, it was symbolic for every time it's been painted. I don't think anyone who's ever painted the rock was ever going to forget about painting the rock, because it's kind of taboo. You're doing a couple of things. One, you're kind of sneaking up on DOT property. There's really not a parking spot. And a lot of times either someone's going to have a driver that drops them off, or you pull your cars over. You're kind of feeling you might get busted, because usually if you're doing graffiti anywhere else, you're going to feel like you're in trouble. So it's kind of that rebel part of it, but it's also like in memory, it's that extra effort. So if you got your happy birthday mark painted on the rock, someone went to town to do that. Or if you painted, the Vikings won, you're representing the whole school. And so everyone that's a Viking would see that and have that, that excitement of just seeing that rock represented you that day.
Well, and as you were saying earlier, just the memorial for people who have painted the loss of their loved ones.
Right.
And you were saying that there's people that do it every year on the anniversary.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually met with them today, and I've talked to them over the years, because on our Facebook page, we have a spot where you just send your photos in. So we're trying to get all of the photos, and these guys are been sending photos in every year. So we get new photos, and it's like you get to know them, and it's a cool story. They had it's a cool story that they painted, not a cool story that their sons passed away, but
Yeah.
they have done this annually. And a lot of times it's just like the 1 year. I haven't seen anyone else really doing it as annually as they have, but they've painted over 20 times. And Jim and Braden, they were lost out at sea and with their kayaks. And I don't know the whole story, but it's actually, it's on the Facebook page. If you go in there and read it, there's more information on it. And to see these ladies with, all the history, it was just really cool to meet them today.
So a ton of history, a ton of tradition, a ton of emotion. Um, there's a lot attached to this rock that, as a community, I think people just don't want to see just dissolved, you know?
Right.
And like I mentioned, I heard rumors that they might have to break it up into pieces. You were saying they may have to scrub it, which is sad in itself because that's then now you're taking that's like taking the Mona Lisa and we got to clean it up a bit and get the dust off of it, and some of the paint might come off too. You know, it's like, you know,
That's probably lead-based paint too, you know?
that's why she's got that weird smile.
Right.
It's like I don't know if this is right or not, but yeah.
And
So
I agree with that. And some of these government rules are just kind of funny where it's really not, it's logical. And so it's hard when you're dealing with
government
bureaucracy.
rules
Right.
not being logical. Oh, imagine that.
Well, and this one, I've usually dealt with a lot of this more from the front end of the counter as a customer if I've gone in to get a building permit or check on something. In this case, a little bit, I feel I'm a little bit, at least mid counter, because of the involvement as the air quote concerned or what is it, person consenting person or whatever on or consenting party is what it is for the Facebook. I do it so much I don't even know what it is, but we are a consenting party to this project. So being kind of a little bit on the back end of these meetings with the Zooms and stuff that they're having. So right now they sent this out to a ton of local people so to see if they would have had an interest in it. So they initially sent these video or the email out to every city, county, and tribe within the Rock jurisdiction. Whoever was interested showed up, and whoever wasn't didn't show up. So I'm on these Zoom calls, and it's interesting. You can see who's there, who's participating. Everyone's email is .gov except for me, and so I kind of feel like I'm a little bit in the, you know,
Interesting.
in the sausage factory a little bit. And so, and I guess some of the feeling that these guys have is that it says in the book we have to do it this way, so that's the way it's been. That's the way we're always going to do it, and that's what we're going to accept. And I have a hard time with that somewhat because I'm more of a logical based person, and I've been a problem solver my whole life in my career. So if there's a problem, I try to fix it. And so the way to fix it in my mind isn't blowing it up or turning it into small pieces because someone couldn't figure out which process to make it to put it in a logical spot. So there's a ton of logical spots that it could go, but WASDOT is air quoting putting it on their rules. We can't put it there because it's WASDOT property. And that's infuriating. And I don't know if anyone has a way to help with this. You know, all you attorneys
Right.
out there who are interested in trying to help, or people who are just interested, we don't have a real big coalition on putting this together. And so I need some help. I guess I do need some help.
What is the time crunch right now? Is there a time frame for this?
I think they're saying the project's going to start in roughly about a year, but they want to have this resolved where the rock's going to go in the next couple months. And they kind of slow played this, and they are slow playing it with me because we weren't reached out till like November, December, and then they were having quarterly meetings, and they're getting the information back quarterly, not like here's or this is a big thing to move, and they're somewhat changing the rules, moving the goalpost after you kick the ball a little bit, just saying. We spent all this time like, wow, why don't we put it in a rest area? When they damn well knew it's never going to go into a rest area based on their current rules, or they knew they were in a position just to nix it, saying, well, we can't do that. But they weren't saying it in a timely fashion. I sent a group email out 10 days ago with no replies. And it's like, all right, so I think there's an agenda. And if there is a conspiracy theory, some of it would be, in my mind, how valid is the whole project of really needing to move the bridge. And I think it would be beautiful. Would it look nicer than a couple pipes in the ground? Absolutely. But
But at the cost of, was it 160 million?
160 million, and at the loss. If it's not benefiting, if it was to benefit trout and steelhead and salmon, I could see it. I could really see it. But is it really going to benefit them when there's a waterfall downstream that may not let the fish go up here anyways? I don't think fish jump 12 feet. So if there is something like that downriver or creek, then it might not be doing anything. So $160 million just for a bridge that does nothing, and you lose a national monument or a local monument.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. And again, just to recap, before we realized the audio wasn't working, you got involved in this just because you were curious about the paint. And how many people have you've actually talked to some people though? You've had interactions with people that have
mhm.
painted it and gotten to know a little bit of their stories. What is one of the most interesting ones?
I'm not saying most interesting, but my favorite, and it was
Yeah,
part of it
yeah.
today. So my favorite rock story is from someone, and I'll put it out there for the world just so she knows it's true. But a good friend of mine, Mimi Furlan, is a great lady. I have huge respect for her. And when this project started, um, I had WASDOT send in a bunch of literature that they had that I didn't have from photos and stuff from the rock. And so I'm looking at some of their historic pictures, and they got WASDOT's got like a historic guy. They've got a archaeologist. There's a lot of guys at WASDOT, but I'm looking at these pictures from the historian, and there's a picture of Mimi painting the rock a few years back for their high school reunion. And who else is in the picture with her was my third grade and fifth grade teacher from Silver Beach Elementary, my absolute favorite teacher all time. And lo and behold, of course, they're best buddies, right? So when that was my favorite story because today we revisited the rock, and I brought with me Bev Belka and Mimi Furlan to go up to the rock because they were doing an interview on Channel 5, and it was just fun. So we're in the car talking um, on the way there and on the way back, but just getting their opinions when they first painted it. And Bev had actually painted it as a surprise for one of her coworkers 30 some odd years even before that. It was Mrs. Wagner, Doris Wagner, who was also kind of my co-fifth grade teacher because they were doing a split class. But um, Doris lived out at Lake Samish, and they got up early one day, and I think painted "Happy Birthday" on it or something. So when she drove by, she thought it was a happy birthday because they would look at the rock every day. So that's my favorite. What's there. Um, and so shout out to those guys. It was probably the best day ever getting to spend some time with those guys.
Yeah, that's awesome.
One of my favorite ones, though, besides just because that one I like them, and I don't, uh, the story on it, I'm not sure if we have it all the way there, but someone put a mask on it over COVID. Like they painted it blue
I think I
and
remember that.
and had like a sheet on it, so it looked like someone was wearing a mask.
Do we have that picture?
We do. It'll
Okay,
show
great.
it
I'll
right
make
here.
sure that gets up.
But even the one, it was a little disappointing because you don't know how long it's going to be painted. So, like, we painted it. I thought it was a great one. We painted the happy face. So it was black with a happy face. Just because we were prepping the Facebook, we kind of did it as an office kind of fun thing to go do.
I wonder
And
what I wonder how often it does get painted. What do you think? What would a guess be on that? Do we have any clue at all?
like we painted it, and it was painted like 2 days later. And I've seen some people, the people that painted after us, it was up for like 3 weeks, and so we were like painted like, "Urgh,"
So it kind of depends on
who's painting it
I
next.
imagine time of year too, because obviously summertime, I bet that thing gets painted every couple days. Where
It's
in the winter, nobody wants to be trudging around in the snow and the ice and the rain and the cold as much as probably in the summer, I would imagine.
I think it's year round because, Jim and Braden talking to those folks, they have to deal with the rain sometimes and the elements, but they're determined. This is a mission. This is a respect
Well,
for their
because you can't really paint it in the rain very well either. So it's
well,
got to
very
at
well.
least
You can, but just not very well.
yeah, it's got to at least be dry. So I imagine it would slow down in the winter, but I would imagine in the summer that thing's getting painted every few days, depending on what it is. If it's a really cool thing, like back when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl or something, I'm sure that was probably up
Oh
for
yeah.
quite a
Well,
while. But
it's cool if you go through the history, and what I'd like to get is the full collection. I would love to have every story that we have, so at least it's put out there. So if we don't have that your rock story or a photo, the main idea for me, what I started this whole thing was I wanted to have those, and it would be fun to put them in a chronological order to see what it was painted. And
well, where let's tell the audience: is there a place that they can go and tell their rock story?
yeah, so just put Bellingham Rock on Facebook, and you'll find the page.
And then they can
And
post their
then,
story there.
well, what they do is I think they send us the story, and then we have to post it because
Sure.
we switch it. We make our cover photo for that. We switch it. We kind of have a way to do it. I don't know if they can post directly to ours. They can. You can. Some people I see are posting someone else's story, so they can post it as a comment, but then we come back and ask them to submit it because we're going to get a better quality photo, and and tag them so they can tag their friends, and we actually make it. Historically, we've been changing the banner and the cover photo, so we would try to get it so the latest one would be the cover photo, and then we would move it to the banner just so it was whatever was up there. The
All
last
right.
two were always up there. Now that they're moving it, we kind of put more of a, a little blurb about that they're moving it, but we still rotate it through one of those photos.
So if you have a rock story of your own, best place to go right now is to the Bellingham Rock Facebook page. And there you can post your comment, your picture, and then someone will kind of get a hold of you. And if you need a better picture, is that sound about right?
Yeah, no, and would love to have it, and you have their photo because you weren't out there just painting it for no apparent reason. And this is at least recently with digital, but even the older ones, people, it's important. People are gonna, can find this picture. You took a picture 40 years ago, but this is what you're going to remember is painting this rock because it was important to you. And so it's funny to think that's probably, as far as graffiti, I'd have to imagine it maybe could win a contest, the most photographed graffiti, because it changed so many times. And there's pictures of people by each one. Looking at it today, so looking at some photos, you can see how it's changed. And that is wild on the just the shrubbery, the foliage, and the rock itself has just changed with the amount of paint.
Gosh, we should do a time lapse kind of thing. If you have those in order, we could get those somehow sorted. That'd be kind of cool. From
Yeah, and
the
if
original all the way up and just rip right through it, you know? That'd be kind of cool. We'll have to talk about that off
this is
air.
kind of a blessing somewhat. The only blessing is if we're trying to go back in time and get the rest of the history with all the media on it right now, it is drawing attention. So if you have one, it would be great to have. And then that kind of what as important it was for you, that would put it out there forever. I mean, it would be out there forever to people remember digitally as far as what you did to the rock.
So if you had your ultimate decision and say so on what happens to the rock, then what would you do? How would you go about it? Where would you put it?
Ooh, ultimate say so. Love that question. I would put it in at exit 246, right in between when you get off the freeway and you get on the freeway. There's kind of created a triangle right there. I would probably bring it out, make it a little bit more of a platform so it's level. I'd put a fence around it, a short one that you could see through that would people could still see what they're looking at. Probably put a nice little light by it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I would have ADA accessibility. We would have a nice trail to it. And the nice thing is with the access, now we have the access because there's a park and ride right here. We would just come right in between where you get on the freeway and off the freeway. We would design it so it's safe to get there, safe for parking, plenty of trash cans.
Put little benches there people can sit and reminisce about when they
Right.
painted it, or family members, or
That would be to me ideal. And if it took some people to chip in to make that happen, if we had to bond it or put some money in together or do something, we haven't started something like that. But if you check the Facebook page, would probably be a good idea. Or I could let you know if that is something that we started that you could let people know.
man, even if we could get $1 million of that 160 million, we could probably make this happen.
Right. Yeah, and they said they weren't all the way sure what the budget was for moving the rock, but they did say they would move it. And in my mind, that's only moving it a couple blocks.
Yeah, the least distance you got to move it, I'm imagining the less it's going to cost and the less hassle, because, like you said, that thing's 100 tons. It's ridiculous.
Well, and I hope it would keep the same tradition because what I love about this is that literally this has been painted at least a couple thousand times, I would imagine. So it's so respectful because instead of having 2 miles or 5 miles of paint up and down I-5 or railroad cars, people are just painting the same thing. And so there's not like a second or a third rock or a fourth rock. I mean, it's the same one. And so I find it respectful that way for, you know, for doing something you feel that you shouldn't be doing, at least everyone's going to the same spot. Is that going to lose any of the zest? At least not in the history right now. From everyone in the past has done it with kind of that bad boy image of doing stuff you shouldn't do. Here to the forward, once it's sanctioned, to if it gets sanctioned, because like I said, they may blow the rock up. Is it going to have that same feel? And maybe I'd imagine it'll be close, but it will be a little bit different when you're just pulling to the park and ride. It won't be as much of an effort.
Well, I think too, everybody, you can go to the Bellingham Rock Facebook page and give your input. What are some ideas? And if there's anyone out there in the legal field that might have some ideas that is interested volunteering some of your time to help figure out what we can do with this um, piece of history, really, a memorial to a lot of people. Um, we greatly appreciate it. Go to the Bellingham Rock Facebook page, reach out to Keith there, and he or somebody will get back to you. I think this is something that crosses all kinds of boundaries of social, economical, all of that. Everybody's kind of had a piece of this rock and had a part of it. I mean,
Right.
I did. I remember when I was in high school, we went up there and painted my school on there because we won the district. I forget what it was, but something like that, right? I don't know of too many people that haven't either painted it themselves or know somebody or have had some sort of interaction with painting the rock. And that's all of us. So, if there's something that we can get along and rally around in this county, I'm all for it. And I think the rock is one of those things where it crosses all barriers and we can all kind of come together and agree. It's just a matter of what's it going to cost? Where's it going to go? WasDOT said they'll move it. Man, let's make it easy on them. Maybe move it somewhere close. Um, any ideas or suggestions are greatly appreciated. Keith, what else? Any other thoughts?
Uh, Kind of just the respect part of it too, because for the most part, I would say 99%, at least what we've seen. I remember someone said there was like a swastika painted on one time, and that was like real bad. It got painted up right away because people have respected this. So it's not like a big negativity board. It's usually
Usually something positive or memorial.
right, or
Yeah,
celebration or something. So
right.
that's what I like about it is just, and we're all going to pass, and it's cool, seeing what your friends will do when you've passed to go paint the rock for you, your benefit, and if you win something. So that is something you used to remember, this painting the rock. I don't know, there's a lot of high school memories, but you remember painting the rock because you guys did something and you earned the right to go paint the rock. It's like we did something that was really good. We won state, and then we're going to go paint the rock. And that is, you're going to remember that. The whole team's going to remember. It's a team building. Everyone remembers who drove or who painted. It's just, and
It's a staple. It's like you look forward to it. It's like, who's going to win the championship this year, whether it's, you know, baseball, basketball, or football. They're the ones that are going to go paint the rock.
and it's mostly Whatcom. I would say all Whatcom County. It's not just Bellingham, because probably Linden gets to paint it the most because they're always
All these winning championships.
they are. But I've definitely seen Linden up there a bunch of times. So, yeah, I think it's important to everyone. Uh, Again, for part of this, the reason I'm involved was because I had a silly Facebook page. But if there's someone that we could hand this rock off to that could take it to the next level and know how to deal with the bureaucrats and understand that, or the placement of the rock, because it really is important, I would say, to the majority, I'm just a wild guess, but of Whatcom County, at least more than 50% of the people, at least based on the comments I'm seeing. I'd be curious with this, well, who's got a negative impact on it. I'd met one curmudgeon down the road, but he was a curmudgeon. So I don't know. That's the only time I've ever really heard of anything.
So you haven't had a lot of negative. It's been pretty positive.
One guy, and that's because I was just talking to him about the creek. He doesn't like the government, I'll tell you that. But he wasn't a fan of the rock either, and that's fine. That's his opinion. But
Sure.
I haven't talked to anyone who has a negative opinion on the rock. It's it's a positive, and you can make what you want of it. If you want to write something happy, we painted the happy face on it. So it was like, all right, so make it happy.
Yeah, it's inert in the sense of I mean, it is an inanimate object that only represents that which has been painted on it.
Hmm.
And you've got people from all different political, socioeconomical backgrounds, race, creed, color, school district, whatever. It's again the history, COVID, all the stuff that's gone on. This rock has been a sounding board for people's opinions, and yeah, I definitely think it's something worth preserving. Again, it'd just be interesting to see what the last painting will be, because that's going to be a piece of history as well. If we do move, if it gets painted one last time and then it's moved and then somehow it's preserved, that's kind of encapsulated in time as well. You know,
Mm. No,
unless it's open to be painted again somehow, but those are the things we need to kind of figure out. Do we want to memorialize it and seal it where it's at, and then put up, placards and pictures and things of all the different years, like 19, different years and stuff, kind of a collage. There's so many different ideas about it. I like what you're talking about, the position you were talking about putting it in that little triangle
Mhm.
off the freeway there. I mean, that's a good idea. But again, this is one of those things that, and you're saying that we have approximately 2 months to try and figure this out.
Well, and it's funny talking about it because it seems silly to talk about it's a rock and just like get over it, guys. It's like, who cares? But it is. So unless you've done it or seen it, or if I'm curious because that's something like polling and stuff like that. I haven't really tested to poll. Because I've liked it, just assuming people are going to send in the photos because we have a little plaque right there that says, once you paint it, send us your photo. So people send it. So I keep on just hearing the people who like it or that was important enough to go paint it. So, I mean, I don't think there's been too many mean things painted on there because if you don't like it, you're not going to go to the effort to paint it. But, it is as
But it's
odd.
like anything. There's always going to be some asshole that's going to paint something that's, and not everybody's going to agree on everything that's painted on there. But I think for the most part, I haven't noticed. There's been some political stuff, but for the most part, I think that's
Oh,
been
yeah.
far and few. It's been more about who won the championship,
Right.
memorials. I love so and so. We're engaged, whatever, that kind of thing. And I think that's kind of I want to celebrate all of it in the sense of it's important because everybody in the community had a part in it. But I think for the most part, it's sort of unified.
When we've only turned down a couple I mean, it's totally First Amendment, freedom of speech, but there was a couple hate things that we weren't going to
Sure.
publish and move forward
Yeah, why
on.
give it credence?
It wasn't worth it. But I'm just thinking if it was, but even politically, I don't recall too many people saying on there. As you're saying that, I can imagine being painted orange and having.
Well, I've
something.
seen Black Lives Matter stuff. I've
I've
seen
seen that.
Trump stuff.
We've had
I've
that on
seen
there.
it all, and that's First Amendment, freedom of
No,
speech.
both those.
I
That's all
would
been
not.
on there.
I'm not. I don't. The Black Lives Matter thing obviously isn't my thing, but I would post that. I would show
We
that
posted
because
that.
it's
That's
a
part
piece
of
of
it.
it's a piece of history. The Trump thing, it's a piece of history. Whether you're president or not, you're president. Whoever you, I want all of it. I want all of it encapsulated. A swastika, I don't think we need to see that. But other things, absolutely. It's a sounding board. It's a piece of history. It's an icon in this county.
And it's hard as getting older and having something that's been part of. It started in 71. I was born in 67, so my entire adult life knowing that this has been there is just a memory of seeing that. So taken away because they've already so much of town is different now than when I was a kid. I mean, just completely different, 50 years ago versus now. And so it's kind of like one of those last, kind of holdouts is like what really, and I think it kind of helps define us. And I think people who go north on I-5, once they pass that, you kind of get that I'm home to Whatcom County. And
It's almost like if you're not from here and you're visiting, you're going to get a feel for what this county's about just by what's on the rock. Especially if you're somebody that travels in and out of here regularly.
Hmm.
You want to know what Whatcom County's about, just look what's on the rock.
Well, WasDOT had something like, so all of the roads in all of Washington State, this is really the only one that's treated like this. There's other people that do painting and graffiti where it's kind of all over, but there was one, I can't remember what it was, they put one rock in the center of like a cloverleaf large interchange, but then it would be hard to come in and paint it and stuff. So, we are Whatcom County and North Skagit, so we are different. We are great. It's a cool spot to be. This is kind of our heritage, so it may not be easy. If we don't speak up or we don't do something, it is going to go away. So if there's people have some ideas, and I don't know how to best sort these ideas because I've had someone said put it in a center of a roundabout. Someone was talking about an art thing. Someone was talking about the parks. And so what that takes, and I will say, Kurt and Emmy at the city of Bellingham are on these meetings, and I appreciate both of their input. They're with the city of Bellingham and trying to kind of problem solve and come up with the idea of figuring out for standing up for Whatcom County. So of the .govers we've dealt with, those two were somewhat top of the list as far as trying to help out. But it takes someone with common sense, because had I owned all of this property and I knew I had to move the rock, I would put it somewhere to take care of it. But because the government's here to help and says we can't put it right there, it's not
Well, and
logical.
again, we need to figure out, what are going to be the stipulations once it does find a new home. Are we going to allow it to be painted again? Because look, unless you put a complete fence around that thing, people are going to want to paint it.
I think they're going to want, if they're going to move it, because it's going to want to be painted. So if someone has any ideas like on bonding this, because WasDOT was saying that or how do we get the money for this? So it's either someone needs the land or we need the money if we want to deal with this, or we need the common sense just to tell the WasDOT to put it at the rest area. If we put it at the rest area, problem solved. They don't have to add a bathroom. They don't have to add parking. They don't have to do anything. Plop it off of the rest area, see what happens, and go from there. One thing they're thinking about is, if they start painting this rock, then maybe they'll paint something else or something.
Sure.
But people could still paint whatever they wanted anyways, and you don't know. But it's like I hypotheticals kill me because you just don't know. It might be better. It might be more respectful. People might paint more around. I don't know. But if there's someone who knows someone who could talk with, I don't know if it's the governor needs to sign off or whoever the head of WasDOT is to make this happen. I don't know him, but if you guys know him or anyone in your audience knows him, that's the person that could make the whole thing be solved. And at least that's an option. I mean, that may be plan B. If there's another spot that we'd want to put it in and the rest area is a plan B, that's great too. I'm all up whatever the best idea is. But right now, they've asked me, just a guy that likes the rock, to try to help them problem solve this. They don't like any of my answers. And I don't know. I'm not the rock moving specialist.
And everyone needs to realize that you kind of got thrown into this and have willingly volunteered to sort of take over just by happenstance, just by being inquisitive about the paint. And so you've kind of by default unknowingly become the spokesperson for this.
I think if we hadn't had that Facebook page, none of this traction would go on. And so luckily, that Facebook page did start, and hopefully that will save it. And hopefully this will help two different ways, because then hopefully we'll also, with all this publicity, start to fill in the gaps on the missing photos that we have for the rock's history, because that has to be painted a couple thousand times. I mean, we've got like 100 of them maybe. So, I mean.
Yep. We'll have to find out what that core sample, how deep that sucker is, and take a few of them. And
right. Have at it. It's
like I said, we should think about doing a contest, see,
that could help win it. Any fundraisers or anything. So that might,
any ideas on that, guys? Post it on the Facebook page, the Bellingham Rock. Well, Keith, other than a little bit of audio issue, which I'll try and edit up and fix that up a bit, I think that was a great little talk about what's going on with the rock. I appreciate you coming in and taking your time to. I want to get this out there so people kind of know and can put their 2 cents in. And anything else you can think of before we go that you might want to mention?
No, just share all your ideas, and I guess either comment with on Mark's channel here, and then we can make Mark do a bunch of work, or or just let us know. And so, anyone wants to help, please reach out, and we can try to problem solve this together.
Well, I think that the government probably would like to know what the community thinks too. Obviously, that's gonna make a difference is when they hear what people think. So, of course, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, but they have at least opened a door for us to figure it out. We just got to figure it out. Is that correct?
I don't know if they've opened the door or not, and that's why kind of needing the help, whether it's petitions
Okay.
or what to do, because they pretend to open the door, but I haven't been. This is my first rock moving rodeo, so I don't know. I don't know what I don't know, and so, and I don't think they know what they don't know because they've never really had to move a rock either. So but they are used to saying, I mean, the maintenance, WASDOT maintenance money, we don't have it. So I was thinking if it was bonded, if anyone's out there smart enough to figure this out, speak up right now, or if not, then the rock
Anyone
goes away.
smarter than the Rock, or both of us? That can't be. It's got to be pretty easy. I mean, that can't be too hard. At least to be smarter than me. So, well, Keith, thanks again for coming in, and I think this is again a cool piece of history, a monument that needs to be preserved some way, shape, or form. So, hopefully, we'll get some feedback on this, and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely appreciate having me and appreciate the attention.
Keith, thanks again, and everybody. That's it today for the Urban Outcast, and we will see you again next time.